y'all, I'm Elisa, the Scrappy Wife behind ScrappyWife.com, and today I have a fun project for you using some printables from Shawna Clingerman. This is a new set that is releasing today. It is called Living Christmas, and it coordinates beautifully with some of the Advent studies from Illustrated Faith. I love, love, love all of the different kinds of Christmas trees. Of course, florals, love Shawna's florals, but all of these Christmas trees are like giving me life. I think they are so, so cute. Look at this one with the rainbow. I can't, that is adorable. So there is the ephemera set, and then there is a card set, which is usually one of my favorites. I love using these in my journal. So you have some scripture written out, some great quotes, which I think is just wonderful how Shawna mixes it up. Love the rainbows and the ornaments right here. Super, super, super cute. And then there are some coordinating digital papers as well. Again, Living Christmas is what this set is called. Love it. It is adorable. I think it's adorable. So I'm excited to use this set all through Advent, but today I'm going to work on kind of a different project. I will link everything that I use down below so you can find it if I can find it online. Otherwise, I'm going to put you guys on fast forward. Let's go. All right, I bought these letters that spell joy at Hobby Lobby a few weeks ago. I feel like they are like MDF. They're not cardboard. They're definitely like a dense wood kind of feel. And I thought these would be fun. I love using the printables in my Bible and in my journaling and things like that. But I also always want to show you guys that you can use the printables in so many different ways. That's why I think they really are such a good value. So the first thing I'm going to do, you can see I flipped the letters over. Of course, the star looks the same both ways, but I am painting these, and I chose 3 colors that I thought went pretty well with Shawna's new set. So I'm going to go with this navy blue. The trickiest part was getting the sides. I kind of wish I'd painted the sides first and then painted the back, but that's okay. You actually don't even have to paint the back. I mean, it's the back for a reason. People are not going to be able to see it, but I just wanted it to feel a little bit more complete. So I'll just go through and get the sides as well. And you see it gets messy, but that's okay. I'm painting on top of, this is a Jane Davenport piece that goes down for paint splattering, and it's kind of a rubbery feeling. Stuff doesn't necessarily stick to it. It's pretty awesome, and I've had it for a while and just never used it. I don't even know if they make it anymore, but Splat Matte, that's what it's called. It's a Jane Davenport Splat Matte, and I like it, so I'm glad I found it so I could kind of protect my work surface, because my butcher block here is like taking a beating lately. I was so careful when I first got it, which I think we all are when we first get something new, and then the crafting started and it started getting messier and messier. So now I'm trying to figure out if I should like sand it down to try to take off some of the stains, or if I should just like embrace the paint and the stains on my butcher block. But either way, I'll figure it out. So I will paint all of these different pieces. We're going to go with 3 different colors, the navy blue over for the J, and then with the star, I'm going to do a coral kind of color. I think it's called shell, and then a teal or turquoise color on the Y. And all of these paints are the Handmade modern paints from Target. The only complaint I have about these, first of all, they're not in stock anymore. So they have a new brand that I think are rather similar. They're not consistent as far as the thickness. So the navy blue was super thick, and then the shell color is much, much thinner, and you'll see it just soaks right into this MDF. I probably could have primed the pieces beforehand, but that would have been an extra step. So I'll just do a few coats. And again, this is the back part, so you don't really have to see, it doesn't have to be perfect, because it's just to cover up some of the brown just so it doesn't show through. This is actually one of my first Christmas crafts of the season. I do usually like to make a few things, a lot of times adding to the decor in my house or my craft room. These letters I think are going to go in my craft room just because they kind of fit the vibe of what's going on in there. And then of course I like to do some crafting with my kiddos during the Christmas season to get them involved. But a lot of that will happen once they're out of school, because they just have busy schedules. They go to school and then we have all the activities. So crafting doesn't happen a lot until they get out. So it'll be like the week before Christmas, and we'll definitely do some crafts. They really enjoy making their own ornaments, and they each have a Christmas tree, a tiny Christmas tree in their room. The boys share one and my daughter has one, and they often will just make ornaments in their free time for their Christmas trees, which I think is super cute. All right, so these will all get painted again, like I said, a couple of coats on here because you can see it just soaking in, and then I let them dry as much as I can possibly stand. You guys know that I'm kind of impatient, so I sit back, let them dry, and while they are drying, I'm going to cut out some of the fun Christmas trees that were part of the ephemera kit for Living Christmas. I think this is just such a cute kit. Those Christmas trees just completely have my heart. They remind me, there's some that reminded me of the bottle brush trees that I have in my craft room and that are really popular right now. I think they were gorgeous, and I like all the different shapes, and I think it's an unusual color combination for Christmas, which is also a lot of fun. And that's kind of what my Christmas craft room is about, is some bright colors, some different colors than you might normally expect. All right, once again, drying this as much as possible before I add on the second coat, just so I know that the coat won't soak in quite as much. And again, I learned my lesson and started painting the sides first before I painted the back. It's just easier to get around it that way. So some of these shapes for the letters were a little bit challenging, and you'll see that as I start to move on to the next steps of the process. Again, drying the star so I can add one more little coat on. You'll see it gets a little complicated, especially with the J. These are some tight spaces in here, and if you are cutting around in there, it can be a little bit crazy. Okay, I had the camera off, but what I did was cut apart some of the digital papers that I had in this kit from Shawna Clingerman, and then I traced the J onto the back of the paper. I'm cutting it very carefully, trying to stay just to the inside of the pencil line, if that makes sense, because I don't want the paper to go over the edge of the J. I want it to fit perfectly on the front of the J. So let me show you what I did with the star. So you can see I'm just going to cut the paper apart just so I have just the paper. It's just easier to know how the shape will fit on that paper. So I could have used my paper trimmer, but I had scissors in hand, so why not? Trimming that, and then I flip it over to the back and then take the star, and I'm tracing what will be the front. So you can still see the painted side of the star. I will trace that out. You can see the star does not totally fit on this paper. No worries, I will have a solution for that at the end, but it'll all fit in there. Just trying to make sure my lines are really nice. There they are. And then again, when I cut, I'm going to cut to the slight inside of that pencil line. And I like tracing on the back because I don't have to worry about pencil lines showing. I don't have to worry about mistakes, things like that. So I will do the same thing, and I chose the papers that were a little bit more solid. You could definitely choose the prints and just go with that. I wanted to add some of the ephemera onto the front of these letters, so I went with the more solid colored papers, but it just depends on the look you're going for. If you really like a certain pattern, then print it out multiple times and use it on multiple letters. So you can see painted side is up. I will trace the Y, making sure I get really close to the edge and making sure it all fits on this paper. I was actually pretty surprised that most of them fit pretty well. And I also don't want to move it. Sometimes tracing can be a little tricky to making sure you get all of the edges covered. So getting in that, see that Y, that little nook right there was a little bit difficult. All right, so get that, and then I will definitely cut that out. Again, same thing, and then I'll have to come up with a solution for the edges of the star. I chose specifically for the star this mustard yellow pattern that had some spotty dots that were not necessarily a specific pattern. So it combined really easily. I'm just going to trace two edges right here, so I have those, and then I'll be able to overlap them when I'm putting the paper onto the star, and it will look like one big piece. That way I didn't have to cut this out again or print it out again. I was able to use my scraps to fill in the whole star, and actually it comes out pretty seamless, which is nice. So cutting those out, and then I'll be able to start assembling things. All right, I'm going to pull out my splat mat again and some matte Mod Podge. And what I'm going to do is first paint on the Mod Podge. Again, this is the front of the letters that you can see, painting on a thin layer of Mod Podge. And then I will take my paper, put it right over the top, really make sure. I love Mod Podge because then you can make sure it's in the right place, that you have a few seconds, to get it situated. And then I'll put Mod Podge over the top, and you'll see a little bit of wrinkling start happening. That generally flattens out. It doesn't really bug me, and there's going to end up being a few things that go on top of this. But I also will take a card at the end and really kind of push those extra bubbles out. And I just follow the same procedure for the other letters. So here I'm putting on those tips that I cut out first, adding a little extra Mod Podge over the top, and then the middle section, and it all comes together very seamlessly. Looks like one big piece of paper, mostly because it was a scattered pattern, and so it wasn't too hard to match up. I'm really making sure that I cover the edges, that the Mod Podge goes over the edge onto the painted area of each 3D letter, just because I want to make sure it's nice and sealed. I don't want it to kind of peel up over time. These will end up being stored away for the season after Christmas, and so I want to be able to pull them out and use them next year. So the Mod Podge sealing will be really important. I'm adding another layer just to make sure, like I said before, that everything is nice and secure. And then I will start working with the ephemera pieces, which is super exciting. So I decided to go with just all of the different Christmas trees. Here's the credit card that I was saying I just used to kind of smooth out some different areas. I'm going to pull out the Christmas trees and kind of cluster them around. So they're going to cover different sections of each letter. They're going to overlap. They'll go off of the letter. It's going to be super cute in the end. And I just wanted the hint of these Christmas trees on the letters, because I thought that they matched so well with all the bottle brush trees that I have going on in my classroom. So in my craft room. And all right, so Mod Podge again. I love Mod Podge. It works so well. I chose a matte one just because I don't really like the gloss finish, but there's tons of different options depending on what you are going for. And again, I just want to make sure it gets really good coverage all the way on the edges, so that those will be sealed down. You can see part of it is going to be hanging off the star. I will end up trimming that once it has a chance to dry. So I definitely could have left it probably, but I think it kind of obscured which shape each letter was. So it's okay with me that I will trim them off later. I'd love to know what kind of Christmas crafting you are doing. I'm working through an Advent series and a mini album right now. I am doing December daily, and then just fun little Christmas crafts like this. Are you doing special holiday crafts? Are you making cards? Are you making presents? That would be amazing. I will be super impressed. Of course I could make presents. It's just the stress of getting it all done, I think, would probably overwhelm me if I had to make presents for all my family and friends. So generally, I end up purchasing just to save myself the stress, and I don't think I could plan ahead enough to make presents. But I'd love to know if you are planning on making presents for your friends and family this holiday. That is awesome, and I applaud you for sure. All right, now that these are in place, I don't think I'm going to use that third one just because there's not a lot of room on the Y. I will touch up and make sure that these are covered really well. One last thin coat of Mod Podge. It's definitely better to do some thin coats instead of glob it on right at the beginning. So wiping that off, and then I will walk away and let these dry so that I can then trim off the letters. So trimming off turned out to be a little bit harder than I thought. I probably would have been awesome if I had like a razor blade edge. I did not, so I just use these scissors. It's not perfect. It's going to be a little bit crazy the way I have to cut, just because there's not a lot of space for your hands to fit. So it all works in the end, and I like the look of them being cut out and still being able to see the letters and imagining the tree, but it got a little bit sloppy in a couple of places. That's okay. I'm sure there's another way I could have done this, but it worked in the end for me. And if you know me, you know that I'm not all about the perfection in my crafting. I'm about having fun and just kind of going with the creative part and not worrying about always what things turn out like. So the J was definitely the hardest. The other ones were much more straightforward because there were straight edges, easier to trim things off. Now, I went through my trim when I was deciding on this project, and I thought I would use some white pom-pom trim, and I almost always use mini pom-pom trim, and this time I decided to go with like a medium pom-pom trim, which you'll have to let me know what you think. I think I like it. Like, I think I like the oversized trim. I think it's a little bit over the top, but that's kind of my style sometimes. So I'll just take some hot glue and glue it all around the edge. It's just, it ends up being a lot, that's for sure. And mini pom-pom trim would have been not quite as overwhelming, but I like kind of the over the top nature of these letters. This will probably sound random, but I also forgot just how satisfying it is to use your glue gun. It goes so fast. Things work really well with the glue gun. I just don't use my glue gun very often because I do so many paper crafts that the glue gun is not necessary, but this kind of inspired me. I just want to do some more craft, like bigger crafts, not just paper crafts, but some other crafty things. So it was a good reminder. I'm having to use my Cricut tool to get in all of these little spaces to be able to press down the trim. And this is where it gets really crowded with the different trim. And maybe I could have just, I don't know, not trimmed all the way around. I don't know. In the end, it turns out pretty well. One thing I run into is when I do the trim along the bottom, because it does have some dimension and bulk to it, the letters no longer stand up. Meaning there's a little bit of a raised edge on the front. So I have to come up with a way to fix that once they're all put away. All right, so I'll go through, do this. Again, the J was the hardest one and the others came pretty easily. The star, of course, was the easiest to get down. And I think the pom-pom adds a lot. It covers up some of the issues I had with the cutting, so that helps. Anytime you can like cover up those little mistakes that happen when you're crafting, that is nice. And then I think it just adds some whimsy, some more whimsical feel, which is of course the total feel of this set and this project. So in the end, I cut off a little bit of the trim and add it to the back of each of the letters at the bottom so that they will sit evenly, if that makes sense, kind of solving that issue. Otherwise, this project is complete. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider hitting that subscribe button as well as the bell notification button. I will link supplies down below, including a link to this gorgeous new set from Shawna Clingerman. I don't think you're going to want to miss out on this one. It's going to be a great addition to all of your holiday crafting. I want to give a huge shout out to my Scrappy YouTube members. Thank you so much for your support. You help make this YouTube channel possible. If you're interested in becoming a Scrappy YouTube member, getting early access to videos, extra bonus videos, even a Zoom call twice a month, then make sure to click the join button or check the link in the description box and check out the different levels of membership. All right, I hope that you have an absolutely fabulous day, and as always, keep it creative.